Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hello out there.
And Pastor Norman is here with us. Hey, Pastor Norman.
Hey there, hey there, hey there. How's everyone doing?
You've been doing okay this breezy Tuesday afternoon?
I have. I've been doing well.
It's been really breezy up this way, and all the pollen and stuff is flowing. Flowing.
Yes, yes. We've been having some strong winds around here lately.
Yeah, and we live where all these trees are, so we got pollen flying every which way. And when baby girl walks the streets, on the side of the street, they got those little fuzzy looking things that fall off the trees. They get all in her fur and everything. Mm.
Hmm.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have you with us tonight. Let's see who's here. My sister, my brother-in-law, and of course Pastor Norman, and then there's Dee Dee and George, and whoever else is out there that haven't commented yet. Look, is this is Easter weekend coming, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people may be going to the beach.
Well, it ain't hot enough for me to go to no beach.
No, me neither. Me
No,
neither.
sure.
Uh-uh. But yeah, you have special plans for Easter weekend?
Actually, we don't. Just going to have our Resurrection Sunday service, and after that, we play it by ear.
I hear you. That's what we'll do too. Thank
That's
you, sister. She said we're here. We're sounding and looking good. Thank you, sweetheart. And then there, hey, Sister Pearl. I enjoyed talking to you the other day. And Sister Pearl and I had a very good conversation about everything, all kinds of stuff,
everything.
everything, everything.
There's a lot of everything going on.
Yes, it is. It is. What did you preach on Sunday?
Well, of course, Sunday was Palm Sunday, and so I pretty much shared from Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9, which was the prophetic part of it concerning Jesus, who is King, the King is cometh. Um,
Yeah.
and then I went to Matthew chapter 21, verses 1 through 11, which was the fulfillment of what was prophesied back in Zechariah 9 and 9. And so pretty much I just shared from the topic, he is king.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
And so pretty much I shared concerning the authority of a king. When a king declares or decree a thing, it becomes law, which means it's not reversible. And so I was
Yeah.
showing different
Yeah.
scenarios in the scripture where even with Nebuchadnezzar, when he made a decree, well, he was actually manipulated into making decrees by the Chaldeans, which later resulted in Daniel, who he loved, being thrown in the lion's den, and also the three Hebrew boys. And
Oh.
so he wanted to change what he said, but the Chaldeans said, "No, you made a decree, so it's irrevocable." And so
Mhm.
I'm sharing a lot of that, and we just had an awesome, amazing manifestation of God's active presence, and again miracles again. So many testimonies. I got a text message today, a couple of hours ago. Someone has a major testimony to share on Sunday, so they want me to wait till Sunday.
Oh, that's great. I was thinking about you on what was the day before yesterday? Pastor and I were kind of talking about what you said was happening there, and I said that I felt impressed that it was it. When I know you know this, that what's happening there has more to do with revival than it does rebuilding your church.
Exactly.
So it's a good thing because there's revival happening in that area. And of course, you know how revival starts with, like with Azusa. There's
Mm-hmm.
no telling how far it will go or how long it'll go. So, yeah, that's a great thing. That's great. That's
Mm-hmm.
really great. I want
Yes.
to acknowledge a few people. Let's see. Sandra Ortiz is here. Hi, sweetheart. And Marcine. And Virginia. Hi, my darling. And then Phyllis and Edward. Yeah. And John Greason popped in. And Jill popped in. I'm so glad you guys are here. So glad you guys are here. Anyway, you were about to say something. I was mentioning the fact that you may be having a revival breaking out there.
Mm. And that has been pretty much what I've been sensing. I know it has more, like you said, it has nothing to do with really rebuilding the church
Hmm.
itself. That would be a byproduct of what's actually happening.
Yes,
But
yes.
um, we've been talking about, and I shared that with do not expect to have, and we say this quite often in church circles. We've been saying it for years. Not having church as usual, but
Hmm.
I was really emphasizing that
Hmm.
because we're not following the normal program or the norm of our worship gatherings and so forth. And so again, I have them bringing the water, the oils, the towels, and everything. We're praying, like I said, it's been such an amazing manifestation of God,
That's
especially in
good.
the area of miracles and the prophetic. There were things that happened this Sunday that everybody was like in awe of what the Lord was revealing. And so, like I said, it's a move, it's a revival, like you
It's
said.
a move. It's a move. Yes, it's a movement more so than anything else, and that's wonderful. Hey, Noel, I'm glad you're here, sweetie. I wanted to read something that I had read to Dad out of this book just the other night. I'm not going to read it, what we talked about, but I'm going to read another part of it. And this is in this book. Some of you who've been with us for a while, you know it. You know about it. Let's see if I can get it up there. It's called The Eye of the Eye, and it's by Dr. David Hawkins, who's no longer in the earth plane in physical form, but he's here in spirit, of course, and was a tremendous spiritual teacher. Um, and he wrote several books. Several books. In fact, there's one called the Power versus Force, the Eye of the Eye, and there's another one. Can't remember the name of that one, but subjectivity and reality, I think was the other one. This one addresses quite a bit because it talks about the I identity, and he was actually a psychiatrist, and who had an awakening experience. So he kind of wrote his book based on that. He also was a, a teacher of kinesiology. So what he would do is he would ask a question and test it with by pushing down on the arm to see if it were true or non-true. And he had quite a bit of a lot of activity in that area, and it was very interesting what he did. But he had one chapter in here called "The Presence of God." I think I want to read from that chapter, and it's about the desire for enlightenment. I thought this was really, really good, and I think it'll probably help some of us. And I don't know how far I'll read. I'll stop. If you have something you want to share, go ahead. Of course, you can stop me. But it says here, let's see where I want to start. Sometimes the seeker puts forth great effort and patience, and discouragement follows. At this stage, the ego assumes there is an I that is seeking an it, the state of enlightenment, and therefore it redoubles its efforts. Traditionally, this is the part I was interested in. The pathways to God have been through the heart, which is love, devotion, selfless service, surrender, worship, and adoration, or through the mind, which is the Advaita or the pathway of non duality. And I've seen a lot of people of late going the way of the mind, wanting to find that uh, connection with God through the mind. But I know when we first, I say it like this, when we first got saved, we had our first encounter, it was more about the loving God and and devotion and setting ourselves apart in consecration and spending hours with God alone and that kind of thing. So those are the two traditional pathways. He said each way may seem more comfortable at one stage or another, or they may alternate in emphasis. Either way, it is a hindrance to consider that there is a personal self or an I or an ego that is doing the striving or seeking, which will become enlightened. It is much easier to realize there is no such thing as the ego or an I identity that is doing any seeking, but instead it is an impersonal aspect of consciousness that is doing the exploring and the seeking. I
Mhm.
thought that was really insightful,
Mhm.
really insightful. And he also mentions instead of seeking to be enlightened or seeking to be awakened or trying to find that means of being uh, at peace and the mind quiet and all of those things. He said just to go back to the loving God, go back to loving God and go that pathway because then, and he may say it in here, let me just finish reading. Let's see, where did I stop? A useful approach, this is it. A useful approach is to let the love for God replace the willfulness that is driving the seeking.
Mhm.
One can release all desires to seek and realize that the thought that there is anything else but God is a baseless vanity. This is the same vanity that claims authorship for one's experiences, thoughts, and actions. It can be seen that both the body and the mind are the result of conditions of the universe, and that one is at best the witness of this. Out of an unrestricted love for God arises the willingness to surrender all motives except to serve God completely. To be the servant of God becomes one's goal rather than enlightenment. To be a perfect channel for God's love is to surrender completely and to eliminate the goal seeking of the spiritual ego. I
That's
thought
good.
that was really, really good. Really good.
That's
Really
good.
good. Kind of brings you back to letting go. Just, I could just let go.
And I think as you were sharing that, I thought about again Elijah experience when he again was running, escaping from Jezebel. But I think when he went into the cave, he was expecting an encounter with God or seeking
Mm-hmm,
God concerning
mm-hmm,
what I need to do next and so forth and so on after such a I'll say such an experience of having victory on my Mount Carmel, calling the fire down from heaven upon the sacrifice. And so for the Lord to say, you know, he was not in the rain, the earthquake, the fire, all of
mm-hmm,
the dramatics,
mm-hmm,
he was in a
mm-hmm,
still small voice. That's where
mm-hmm.
we get the concept about being still and know that He is God. Because I find myself with our congregation, and I have been sharing this a lot, and I notice I've been saying it to them quite often because I want them to understand, especially those that probably been awakened or truly in tune, because you could be in tune with your charismatic abilities and still not be awakened. So
Yes, very
um,
definitely so. Yes.
I was sharing with them in a way, again, just because you see me flow or operate like this does not make me any more special than any of you. It's just I've come to awaken to or been enlightened in certain areas that you have not yet maybe have. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, it's part of my journey and so forth. So I'm not no more special. And so that's one of the things that I'm noticing where it seems as though uh God Himself is letting us know that just because we do all of these different rituals, you know, we could go on these prayer and fasting
Mm-hmm.
consecration
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll come out of it as if we have been enlightened to the place where we're so much more special.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I observe lately, when you get around other spiritual leaders, they have this conversation of talking about what they've done, and
Mhm.
God said,
Mhm.
God, and I sit back and be quiet and just observe, because
Yeah.
me, in some incidents, not all, but in some instances, is as if you're trying to see who know more than the other, or who somebody you sharing as if you had a greater experience with God than someone else,
Mhm.
and so forth. And that's where I begin to see the display of the ego rather than just being still and
Yeah.
know and just
Yes.
love on one another and so
Mhm.
forth. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. John Greason said that if anybody watched Sunday's broadcast, to him it was revival. Thank you for that.
Amen. Yes,
Uh,
I did. I saw it. I
thank
wasn't commenting a lot, but I saw it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this week, the two of us remembered an event that we had happened to us, and I'm trying to find it in the book here, but I may not find it. Years ago, I remember he was meeting me for lunch when I was working, managing a physical therapy clinic, and we went to Subway for lunch. And when we got there, ordered our food and everything, got ready to go, and the guy who's behind the counter said, "You all come back." But when we got to the door, the two of us looked at each other because we heard something totally different, overlapping his words. And what we heard overlapping the words that came out of his mouth was, "God bless you."
Mhm.
And we stopped and talked in the parking lot because we said, "Did you hear that?" We both heard it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like there was another voice that spoke over top of his his physical apparatus.
Yeah, some people call it the over self.
Yeah, yeah. So just recently I read in the same book that I got here, and I'd have to find it, but I can't. I don't know where it is right now. I didn't section it off. He mentions that there is like a parallel. Um, what we what we perceive is the lesser self playing different roles and speaking. So this was the guy who was at the subway. He was playing the role of whatever the job he was doing there. But his higher self had a conversation that was happening with our higher self, which is the same one self
Mhm.
with itself. And we heard it. We were graced to hear it. So we know what we gathered from that is this: while we look and perceive different situations, we look at them and we'll label them either good or bad or whatever. But in actuality, what is happening is everyone is playing with their lesser self. They are playing roles. It's kind of like a movie, but their higher self, the higher self, not their or mine, is the same higher self. It's the one self is interacting with itself.
Mhm.
And it's just really interesting that we had the opportunity to hear that and to have that happen.
That also brings to mind when individuals, you may have had a thought in your mind, you was getting ready to say something, and the person
Mhm, mhm,
with
mhm.
you says, "Well," and you like, "Oh, you ain't gonna believe this. I was about to say the exact same thing, or we heard
Yeah,
the same thing."
yeah,
And so that
yeah,
shows it that we always just dismiss those things as, "Oh, that was a coincidence." No, that wasn't a
yes,
coincidence.
yes,
That was a divine event that happened that we looked at it in such a small way, but in all actuality, it was an indicator, once again, how we all are so
yeah,
connected in the spirit. I mean, we have this happen all the time.
the time.
I would do my broadcast at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, only for me to get off and come on to you guys, watching you guys, and y'all saying something I just said, and I'm laughing. I'm like, "Oh my God, I just said," so forth. And so it's showing how we all are truly connected as
Yeah,
one. We
yes,
have always tried to rationalize it out as if it was just a coincidence, something that
Yes.
was as
Now I found it, so and evidently it wants to be said today. So here, let's see where I want to start. Human appearance has taken on a whole new aura. Now he's speaking from the standpoint of his own experience when he became enlightened, when he had that initial experience. This is what happened to him. He said human appearance had taken on a whole new aura. The one self, that's with a capital S, which is God, we know that's God, shines forth through everyone's eyes. A radiance shines forth from everyone's face, and everyone is equally beautiful. Most difficult to describe is the interaction among people
Mhm.
that moves onto a different level of communication. Okay?
Mm,
There is obvious love among everyone. And this is his experience. He experienced this. Their speech, however, has changed so that all conversation has become loving and peaceful. Now, he's not talking about on a conscious level. Okay, you'll hear this in a moment. The meaning of the words that are heard is not the same as others hear. It is as though there are two different levels of consciousness going on, coming out of the same scenario of form and movement. The meanings of words themselves have been transformed onto a different plane by the higher selves of the people involved with each other. And the communication of understanding is on a higher plane. At the same time, it is clear that the lower selves of the people are unaware of the communication simultaneously going on with their higher selves. People are as though hypnotized into believing the reality of the ordinary self, which is the unwitting acting out of scenarios or roles, as in a movie. By ignoring the lesser selves, the higher selves address each other directly. This is what we experience.
And there's a clue that she just said by ignoring
hmm
the lesser self.
The higher self address each other directly, and the person's ordinary selves appear to be unaware of this ongoing higher level of conversation.
Which makes the real word of God a higher vibrational frequency that we are.
Mhm.
We don't, the lower self gives off the idea that it is more real than the invisible.
And there's a conversation happening even now
Mm-hmm.
here in this setting that's not necessarily the same words that come out of here because and if you're ignoring your lower self, your lesser self, you will hear a message, a meta message from the message that we're speaking.
It's like coming in the house, and when you come in, you smell like somebody's cooking some fresh bread or cooking a meal. And when you get in here, nobody's cooking anything. It's because your attention is focused on the smell more so than it is the object that was recently, earlier, participating in bringing about the smell. But you have to learn how.
Yeah.
I say learn, but it's not.
It's not a learning.
It's not a
actually.
learning thing. It is something that, in other words, you could be awakened instantly
Or progressively.
or progressively.
And we realized after because this happened over 40 some years
Oh
ago.
yeah.
So we would not at that time have even said the word enlightenment or awakening or any. We didn't be thinking that.
So
that
the voice of God that we say we hear and intuitively is our real identity, higher self communicating through the vessels.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to Peter and Jesus, and when he said who he really was.
So we were given the privilege of hearing the higher self, not knowing what it is and what it was at that moment. But so we concluded that our awakening began 50 some years ago, but has progressively led us to where we are now in an expansion of that awareness. So here he says this the conscious presence of the self. Now, let me back up. At the same time, people are sensing intuitively that something different from the ordinary is happening.
Mm-hmm.
The conscious presence of the self, that's with a capital S, which is God, we know that's God he's talking about, creates an energy field which people find extremely pleasurable. It is this energy field which performs the miraculous and brings occurrences
Mm-hmm.
into harmony along with a sense of peace to all who experience it.
Wow. Which gives a greater insight and more profound meaning to the scriptures when it states, "Those that have ears to hear, let
Mhm.
them hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying."
Exactly, exactly. Now we know that's what Jesus was saying. That's
Mhm.
exactly what he was saying.
Everyone that comes into this finite world is entombed
Mm.
into the misideal concept, or a concept that we are more this. There's not anyone that come into this world that don't go to sleep.
Yes,
You
yes.
come into this world already awake, but
Mhm.
going to sleep
Going to sleep,
in order
yes.
to function in this world. That some people are more, some beings who don't give up the uh, the higher self as quick as others do,
Mhm.
And it could be because of their environment, you
and the
think,
contracts.
and their
Mhm.
contracts. Yeah.
But once you understand, the question is, Jesus wasn't the only one that was asking the question, "Who do men say that I am?" The question was through the higher self in all of us is asking the question, "Who am
Am
I?
I? Yes.
Who are
Exactly.
we?"
Yes. Yes.
Everybody's asking that question. It's not just certain ones you hear, and it is answered, but sometimes answering it means coming into this finite dimension to find the answer. And
Mhm.
when we find the answer, we're going to find our true self. There's nothing outside of our true self that is not uh, that is not real.
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just talking. But I am really, because I really don't know.
Well,
I can't find. There's no vocabulary to describe the indescribable.
that's
It's
true.
just
That
that you
is
have
so
to.
true.
Uh, this condition self has to be, and you're not going to be born again by doing, saying, or being in a certain religious circle. The new birth experience is not fully implemented just by receiving something. It is by seeing,
Seeing,
Seing,
yes, yes.
seeing. Uh, it's
Or
an
real
aha moment.
or realizing, yes,
Aha moment is,
realizing.
huh?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, I wanted to say this too. A lot of us now, especially in the West, because here in the West we're more uh, egotistical in the sense of
Mhm.
we tend to look for highly motivated messages, messages that motivate our humanity, motivate me to be the best human that I can be, in the sense of I fulfill all of my dreams and all of my goals, and I'm able to reach a certain epitome of whatever it is I desire in life. And so we tend to think that when we ask the question, "Who am I?" we tend to think that that's what it means, that
Mhm.
I'm going to find that part of me that's going to be successful and overcome all of the challenges that I have and all of that. But it's so I like to kind of tweak the question of who am I to what am I?
Mhm. That's
What am I? What am I? I
mhm.
know I've already come to the conclusion that I am not the body and I am not the mind, even though I inhabit it and I use it.
Mhm.
And there are times when I get lost in it.
Mhm.
I know
That's what the fall is. Getting
in a
lost in.
deeper part
Mhm.
of this being that I find myself as, there is no relation to the body or mind.
Being lost in sin is being lost in misplaced identity.
So we in the West have tended to retrain, reprogram the mind to be its best. become emotionally intelligent, so that we know how to go through life and not freak out. But at the
Mhm.
same time, all of that happens. What are you? What are you? Even if none of those things happen. And I wrote a note in the book in the sidelines when I was reading this years ago, and it says, "I am that, even if I never experience it phenomenally."
Waking up to our true self is it's like saying once upon a time.
Yeah.
Once upon a time. The communication of our faith is the communication of our true identity.
Yes. Yes.
And there is faith is removed when it is seen or when there is no reason.
And I want to
These words are
and
not
I
fitting
want to
in.
say, when you say faith is removed, you're saying trying to believe something
No, you don't have
into
to.
existence. Don't have to. Doesn't have to be done. You can live beyond belief.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Your wheels are turning, Pastor
Yeah,
Norman.
I am, and I'm reading, and I went to something in the book of Genesis. Dad says something that kind of triggered when he said, "When we come into this world, we actually come into the world actually awake,
Wait.
enlightened." And so when he said that, it's funny now being a father. My wife and I, we got kids and everything, but we've really been watching our two grands here lately,
Okay.
and with those two, we've been having these aha moments with them to the point that we're noticing and we're saying is as if they've been here before. Now,
Yeah.
I never observed that with my kids, but I am observing that with my grandkids, and the things that they're saying and doing. There's no way at that age y'all should be having language like that. And so we noticed something. Dad made me think about what happened this weekend with Shay Shay. Um, Shannon told me this before she done became a parrot. And basically, Shay Shay repeats and she does it as a game. I mean, she's only 3. Her mom would say something, and she would immediately say what what Shannon would say, and she kept doing it over and over again and was laughing. And so I thought about what Dad said. By us imitating whatever is in our environment, that is how we begin to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Because we start imitating those that are in a dream, that are
Imitating. We start
asleep.
imitating a lie.
Mhm.
Exactly. And so we become part of that dream, with that universal dream. That's
Mhm.
that's it. It's a universal dream. And so we become part of it, and we lose touch with who we really are.
That's
Yeah.
kind of like saying in
Yeah.
the world but not of the world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
yeah, and that is so true. And Sunday we were talking about the monkey. We ended up talking about the monkey, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
The monkey mind. The monkey.
the monkey was really swinging Sunday.
I know. So you were talking about your grandbaby parroting. She's a parrot. She
Mhm.
repeats everything she hears. But
Hmm.
how about this? This is what we concluded, and we talked about a little bit after the session. How about those of us who have heard all of this spiritual language? Well, our ego, the ego, can hijack the language, and it'll end up being the monkey who is spiritualized and just repeating or parroting the language. And it
Mhm.
doesn't ring true, even though it's the truth,
Mhm.
because it's coming from a different source. It's not
Exactly.
coming from the truth, so it's speaking out of a spiritualized ego. So some people think they don't have a monkey because they can spout the language.
Hmm. That's the
But
monkey
that's the
spouting.
monkey spouting the language.
So
There's a difference
so
between being a son of God and a son of a gun.
that's it. Now, so would you say that the monkey is also the pretender?
Sure.
Okay, so now, if
And the
that's
pre-
the case, then
Mhm.
that gives a greater
Defending
insight and
pretender.
revelation of the word hypocrite or hypocrisy.
It does. Yes.
So it doesn't mean that I'm just preaching one thing and doing something else. It
Right.
actually means I am pretending to be something
Yeah.
other than my authentic self.
Yeah. Well, you know, the word hypocrite comes from the word actor. It
And
was from the Greek amphitheater where they acted out certain roles. That's where
Mhm.
the word hypocrite comes
and
from.
the definition of mistake is you've been invited to a steak dinner, and when they serve the meal, you don't get nothing but a hot dog.
Now
That's a
see,
mistake.
let me show you how we just did it again. We just did it again, the connection. So you didn't even know the experience that I just had Sunday after church.
With a steak,
My wife wanted to go and eat at the steak place.
a steak plate.
And
Mhm.
been there so many times before. They make the greatest steaks around, and one of the
Yeah,
greatest. And I was not happy with my steak at all.
that's a mistake.
It
It
was
was
a mistake.
fatty. Yeah, it was very. I've never had steak that it was nothing but fat.
Wow.
And so my
What's
wife know
the
my wife know I'm not such a great complainer about so much stuff. And she looked at it, she like, you don't look like you. I said, Gwen, look at it. All of this fat. I don't have no meat. And I wanted a ribeye. So the manager came by. My wife said something. She said, he ain't gonna say nothing, but I want you to look at his steak. And so she said, well, I'll make you another one. And so I didn't even tell her this. And so because she was pretty much finished with her meal, I said, well, look, I just bring it and I'll take it home. I just take it home. Well, when I went to eat the steak yesterday, that one was just as fatty as so that was a mistake.
Mistake. Exactly. That was a mistake.
that's about like eating the chitlins in a steak plate.
A
Literally, I'm like,
mistake.
where's all of this fat coming
Oh,
from?
oh my God.
But years ago, we used to eat chitlins like it was a steak.
Oh, I mean, well, again,
Misplaced chitlin.
you forgot I was raised on a partial farm. I'll put it that way. That
Yeah,
was my
yeah.
job, the pigs. Yeah.
Well, you know, back in the day, you know, the cheapest meat for blacks was chicken and hog.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of black people had high blood pressure because they
Mm-hmm.
ate a lot of hog.
A
And
lot of them.
they ate every part of the hog. And so, yeah, chitlins
Like
was
they say,
included.
from the rooter to the tutor.
Oh my goodness!
and,
Listen, that
that,
is
and
They
man.
say
everything,
this out.
yeah,
Rooter
and
Listen, that
to
man.
everything
the
was
rooter to
seasoned.
the tutor.
Yeah, and everything
Rooter tooter.
was seasoned with fat back meat. You know,
Yeah.
so
You
yeah.
fry egg on Sunday morning with when cooked on a wood
Well,
stove.
yeah, because you save
You
the
save the
fat.
grease.
You save it.
You
Yes.
have a fish chicken egg. Could be very well be a square duck egg.
Yeah, donkey.
Oh, wow. Listen, John Greason says, "How about a monkey on your back?" Well, monkey on your back.
Oh
You can tell us that you got the story about when you was working for the city. You was
yeah,
young.
I was out on the railroad track. We cutting a different high schools shrubbery and cleaning up as a group. Was called it. But anyway, it was a group of us signed up for summer work, and I just got over exhausted and fell out on the railroad track.
And already having emotional problems at home.
Yeah, I mean, I
Everything
was a
came out.
shaking and a baking right there on the
Everything
railroad
came
track.
out.
I fell out on the railroad track and just laid down, just shook. And they came up and picked me up and took me in there.
You
And
were talking about everything,
I
weren't
was talking about how mean my uncle was and how mean I was treated. And then they had to call my dad, and he came.
you?
And he came and they put me in his car and took me to the emergency room over in
Had you
Winston
breathe in a bag?
and had me take a shot and breathe in a bag
Yep.
to readjust my
Yep. That's a monkey on your
awareness.
back, John Greason. That's a monkey on your
That's
back.
the monkey. I mean, it jumped me, it monkeyed me. I mean, it put the whammy on the body.
But it's still the monkey mind because it had all the data of everything that he had
Mhm.
ever experienced, and it's like the lid came open and he had no
Yeah, I had
bubble
what
on
you call a floater.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
wow.
once you learn how to, I don't like to use the word learn. Once you become aware of not being the lower self, Our country is being run by the lower self, even though there are religious philosophers and denominationists
What?
people.
You keep making up
Denomination
words now.
Say it straight out. What is that?
hypocrites. But anyway,
Anyway.
yeah,
That's true. That's
everybody.
not a statement there now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like walking around with a necktie on and your shirt out.
And
Like the guy you saw downtown that had on a white
Oh,
shirt
he had on a
and a
preacher
tie.
hat, Stetson, and he walking with a big belly stuck out there, and a towel, and
He had a T-shirt under
had a
it,
T-shirt underneath of him. You could see through it,
and the T-shirt had rolled up.
and it rolled up on his shirt, and it looked like I said, "Well, my God." he gonna get a lot of people believe in him. He got on a thin white long sleeve shirt and a T-shirt that looked like a baby bib underneath of it. I said, "Well, look at that. He ain't gonna get nobody saved right there with his belly all stuck out in the way, and the thing rolled up in there like a bath towel."
So, John, the monkey shows up all kinds of ways, and it's nothing but the mind.
No one come in this world without a monkey.
The mind can become spiritualized, I should say, and that's useful, but it's not necessarily full awakening. The mind can simply be a chatterbox of all of the problems you've ever had, the storyteller. The monkey can take on any flavor. And we're familiar with monkey because we see it every day. We all have
it
one.
justice in the day. Mm-hmm.
The monkey is the one that stick your head down in the sand and leave your butt out. That's the monkey.
That's the
Okay.
ostrich.
Was that the monkey that said that?
Yeah, the monkey said that.
So the monkey's acting like an ostrich now. Okay.
It's a shapeshifter, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a shapeshifter. It is.
When I first started driving a straight drive 55, 56 Chevrolet, I knew they changed gear, but I thought you stayed in the same gear, and I was going up the street in high gear, and the motor is racing, and then somebody said, "But so you got to change the thing," and that's the way most of us come in the world. We come in the wrong gear, and but the bride said, "Well, where's your gear?" I got it, but you don't know how to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time for us to see that there is really no such thing as us changing anything. It is the higher self that works in congruent with the true identity. That's like my Lord speaks unto my Lord.
So right after we discussed this, that I read with you guys about that higher self directly communicating, we were at the grocery store. And he pulls up to help to let me put my groceries in the Jeep close to the door. And there's a lady who was driving an SUV. She pulls right in front of him so that he
cut us off.
So he can't even move forward to get to leave. And so it was at that moment we realized, okay, here we are. We're talking about the higher self communicating and having a conversation that we as lower selves or lesser selves aren't even aware of. And so here this lady's playing a role. She's playing a role. And so at that moment, we were playing a role as well. It helped us. It didn't help us so much not to be irritated, but it helped us to get past it really quickly because we realized that in that moment of her cutting us off and she apparently thinking we cut her off, there was a direct communication going on between both higher selves.
The higher self is what caused Noah to understand the communication of faith, which would be the communication of animals. And the higher self is the one that can stand in the grass and hear it talk.
So it was the higher self, if the story is true of Adam actually giving all of the animals labels and names.
That's the higher self.
The higher self that did that.
And see, that's I talked about that on Sunday about declare a king decreeing, or a person has the authority that is God in the earth. That's who Adam was, God in the earth. So now you brought up something. Now, when we say the higher self, because this one verse in Genesis, it's been really playing with me, and it's been keeping my wheels going over and over. And that's Genesis chapter 3, verse 22, when God makes the statement that man became like us
Like God.
after eating the tree. All right. So we know
Mhm.
that the state that Adam and Eve was in was a total state of innocency where they
Yes.
had no idea of good and evil.
Mhm.
So now we say that's the fallen state, but it's in their fallen state that God says they're
They
not
become as
more
us.
like us.
Mhm.
You see,
Mhm.
knowing
Mhm.
good and evil. So
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
if we talk about the higher self, is the higher self representing the state of total innocency of not knowing the difference between good and evil, or the higher self is that state of knowing good and evil?
The higher self is aware of both sides as awareness, observing the good and the evil in definition, but in reality, it is its refined identity of beingness that recognizes it without
Yeah.
jumping in it.
Yeah.
But yet it is in it because it is what comes through what we call prophetic insight. That is the higher self speaking from its true identity. It's not a gift. It is a awareness of being made aware of itself,
Yes.
which means there is no war except for the lie that has been. The lie is seen through the higher self.
Yes.
You cannot see God unless God, as the higher self that you are, see Himself.
Yes. Now I want to read just a little bit of this to kind of maybe touch on what you just asked, Pastor Roman. He
Okay.
said, and he's referring to his own sessions where he had sessions similar to what we're doing now. He said visitors who had traveled many miles to ask questions suddenly knew in the presence of that aura or that energy field the answers which came about through an inner understanding that made the original question they had irrelevant. This occurred because the presence recontextualized the illusion of a problem and caused it to disappear. Recontextualize. The higher self sees it, but recontextualizes it.
Here's a good one.
That's
Here's a
good.
good one.
That's good. That's good.
And his disciples were come to the other side, and they had forgotten to take bread. And then Jesus said to them, Take, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees or
Sad you sad you
Sadducees, Sadducees or the
of the
Sadducees,
sad you see
which means he's saying, be aware of everything without jumping in
in
it,
it.
because there's no need for you to panic. He said, this is what it's all about. In the midst of the storm, there would always be a real you.
Yes. Yes.
That's the awareness.
That is able, a real you, the essential you, the essence of what you are your inner being, the deeper
Yeah.
aspect of yourself
Uh,
that actually knows and can recontextualize what your mind would classify as evil or bad.
and Galatians 2:20 says it's no longer I that live, but Christ that live.
Mm-hmm.
So we think I'm living and God's going to save me as part of this, but there is nobody to save.
Exactly.
There is nobody to save. It's the illusion of the contract that we fill out, or they don't have to go through all of that.
Right.
But at the same time, waking up is God being reduced to the level of a separated I. And that's not true. We're not a separated I. Like I said, we all are sons and daughters of God, whether in the body or out of the body. So that's what caused me to study near-death experience and out-of-body travel, is because what travels out of the body is a you that has never been in a body. So we got it all crossed up in fire. and as soon as and you have to admit, uh, there is not anybody in this dimension that's not going to wake up. Everybody's going to wake up. It may not be in time zone or the finite mind, but you will. You get into we're all going to see the turnaround.
So I would say this: there is the awakening experience is not uh, an altered state. It is simply coming to the actual knowing, not trying to believe, but knowing that there is nothing else here but God. There's
Hmm.
nothing else
There's never
here.
been anything else in
Every
here.
self there is the self, the one self that God is. And so everything that we see, every interaction we have with other people is simply the essence of what God is in myriad forms and playing myriad roles to experience itself as that. So this is God's game, this is God's play, and yet we are all experiencing it. God is experiencing it as individuations in each one of these forms.
I look at it like this, Pastor. What use is it to go around saying I got the Holy Ghost, and yet you're acting like a Casper ghost?
Now, see, I said that Sunday. I said that exact same thing Sunday.
Like I always say, because you're monkeying around to show your tail.
Oh yeah, you will though.
Oh,
You
excuse
will
me.
though.
She
You
said you
will.
will.
You will.
The monkey show his tail
Yeah,
every time.
it will show its
Hmm.
tail. It will. It will.
Wow.
Every time. Well, look, this conversation is getting deep. It's getting really, really
Yeah,
deep.
because I was giving ready, yeah, my mind is going right now. This thing is really tugging at me right now. So um y'all said it several times today, because I was going to ask the question, uh what would you say to a person that, again, we know it's not so much you could do something to be enlightened, you can read to be enlightened. What would you say to a person that may approach you guys and say, well, I want to be awakened, or I want to be in the state that you guys are in?
That's a legitimate question.
Huh?
That's a legitimate question. I have a way that I would do it. Of course, Dad has his own way of doing it. Dad has the ability. I think it's awesome, the way that he has the ability to not hear a question that they ask with their mouth, but to hear what really needs to be answered. And a lot of times he'll come at it not so much answering the question, but he'll hit the nail on the head with whatever it is that they need to
That
hear.
sounds like the Republicans, don't it?
With what that he will hit the nail on the head with what they need to hear.
That don't sound like
So
the
now his approach to that question would be totally different from mine.
They don't never answer the question.
But in my case, what I would do if a person said that to me, I would take them through the neti process. The neti process again is showing them what they're not and
Mhm.
having them see that for themselves. Asking them the question: if they take their name away, if they take their gender away, if they take their color and race away, if they take their accomplishments away, if they take their family culture away, all of those things that we call humanity, what are you?
Mhm.
And when you sit with that question, what are you? After you remove all of those things, you give those things away because those are things that were added to you. They're not really you. They were added. So when you take them through that process, they sit with the fact that I don't know what I am, and I can't say what I am, but I feel what I am. And so that would be the way I would approach it. But of course, like I said, Dad would immediately zoom in and target whatever it is that really, really needs to be answered when they ask that question,
Gotcha.
because that's the way he's built.
So you're a Republican, like you said.
Yeah, they don't ever ask the question, is that a red car you got in? Well, I'll drive a car, but
They
I
reflect.
just bought
They
a
Hey,
car.
reflect.
Is that a red car?
Republicans. That's politicians.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes
They
or
will
no?
Yeah,
never.
all of them say that.
And
Yes or
I,
no? They won't
Parties,
answer.
both
when I
parties.
listen to them, I literally be cracking up. I'm like,
Yeah,
that is not what they asked you.
both parties
But
do
I
the
can
same
fix
thing.
that. I got switch in my hand. I can change that. I can switch
You
that
can
off of
send them
that.
out into oblivion. I know.
Yeah,
I
I ain't
know.
got
I
time
know.
to fool with that.
But that's what we're not so much learning. I read with Dad the word learning is overused. That's the realization we're coming into that um, there is I won't say a self, but there is the one self that is here that I have all my life believed is a me by
Mhm,
myself.
mhm.
But that in essence is the only me that is in this earth, and that is the one self, which is God itself, and playing all of these roles. So coming into that awareness is what waking up is.
We come in this world awake, and like we always say, born in sin and shaped in iniquity from my mother's womb. But go back before the mother's womb, and you were awake, but you went back to sleep
Mm-hmm.
because we go to school, and when we go to school in college, that enhances and redefines sleep. It's called complete ignorance, meaning complete
Mm-hmm.
ignoring,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
full barrel loaded ignorance of denying the truth of who you really are.
Okay.
I'm
That's a
not even.
sickness.
I'm not even gonna throw nothing else out there because if I do, we'll be here another hour. Because I'm
Ah,
serious. My mind is going.
The
I'm,
key.
I'm gonna hold it till next week.
Yeah, well, I know you will go and contemplate it and marinate it, and you'll probably preach on it eventually. But yeah, so the key word is recontextualizing, and the higher self does recontextualize what we consider as humans in our perception is evil or bad.
Mm-hmm.
So when the lady pulled out in front of us, our mind said that's bad. She shouldn't have done that.
yeah. She
But her
rude.
mind was saying the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
but on another plane, on another dimension.
And
Both both
Different
higher
reality.
selves, the higher self had to meet one another.
part of the plane she was on her cell phone, or she pulled up in front of us on the cell phone.
But that's the monkey
And
that
that's the
doesn't like
monkey.
that.
That's the monkey.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not even gonna add.
I believe he come to a stop, didn't
No, like I said, my mind is. When I get over this, I'm gonna be research stuff.
Well, look, if you don't got this book, you get it.
I
Because
don't. I'm gonna get that one.
get it because if you it's not easy reading, it's heavy reading because he was a psychiatrist.
Mhm.
So he has some words in here that I have to look up in the dictionary. But it's worth reading in order to understand what's happening. And I'm sure you, Pastor Norman, will get a whole lot of insight because of
I
what
think you
you.
can get that on Amazon. That's the only
Yes,
place I
I'm
could
pretty sure
find
you
it.
can.
We've had
Yes, you
that one for
can.
years.
Mhm.
Now we'll
He
order
even he even has a part in here where he talks about soft gazing and looking, not so much looking, focusing with intent on a particular object, but using your perceptual vision, your peripheral vision. And when you do that, that's soft gazing. Dad does that all the time. Even when he's talking to us on set online here, he's not looking at the camera or the screen when he says it. Most of the time, his eyes glaze over.
Mm-hmm.
He goes into the conversation inside himself. And so, yeah, he talks about that in there.
Okay.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, John Greason, for telling us to hit the like button. Thank you so much. I want to remind you guys, we are going to be having the family gathering coming up. The family gathering is coming up not this Saturday, but the Saturday after, the 26th. And it's going to be at Ben's Boys. I want to see you. Make sure you uh, If you don't contact us, you can take a stab at it and come on over there and see if you got a chance to get
Yeah,
in.
come on now.
Come on in. Come on in. We'd love to see you, even if you don't have a seat. We'll squeeze you in somehow, okay? But we love you. We look
Even
forward
if
to
you have to
seeing
come
you.
in, ladies, if you have to come in with a broke high heel shoe, you can come on in.
Exactly. Exactly. Just
Broke
try to
high
get
heel shoes.
Yeah,
it.
one heel. You seen a woman try to walk in a high heel shoe with the heel broke.
And
She's up,
you're gonna
Yeah.
sit them in a chair and grow it out.
grow a heel out. There you go. I've seen that happen. I've seen some heels grow out.
And then Jill said she has read this book, and she said it was hard at first. It was, but after having heard this in different ways of being said, Jill, I'm pretty sure it now is a lot easier to process.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot easier to process. So it's not for the person who just likes to read light reading. It's not for that.
You have to
It's
chew
for
it.
the serious student.
You have to chew it and digest it.
Mm-hmm. So, anyhow, we hope to see you there. We'll be back on Sunday, and we'll be here live in color. As long as nothing happens, we'll be right back here. Pastor Norman will be on his broadcast at 9
9 a.m.
a.m. Look, you go ahead and have a revival wherever you are, young man.
We believe in the move.
So we're going to take off here. We love you and thank you for your gifts and support and sending us love gifts and whatever. And Jill put on there how to give to Pastor Norman as well. And thank you, Jill, for always reminding us how to do that. Thank you so much because, we forget. We get to talking and stuff and forget all about it. But we thank you guys and have a wonderful week, the rest of the week. And we'll see you on Sunday. All right?
See you later.